Hello again, everyone. I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching. Today we're going to do a watercolor painting, and this is a interesting scene from Canada. Actually, it's an area called Brakey Bay in Ontario, Canada. And my niece sent me this photo, and I thought, boy, this looks like it might be something to try to do a watercolor of. And so that's what we're going to do today. I'm kind of infatuated with these sunsets or sunrises and some of the silhouettes that you have to deal with painting. And so we certainly have that in this photograph, as you can tell. So I'm going to get going here. I want to get my camera zoomed in for you and get going on this. See if I can get it set up just so you can see the entire paper. All right, so I have a rough sketch on my paper here, and I think we're ready to get going. I'm going to probably do quite a bit of this wet in wet, at least initially, until I get the sky in. So I'm just going to put a nice coating of clear water on here for starters, and let the paper start soaking in and expanding a little bit. Probably can't even see my sketch. I have it fairly light. Also, I have just a little bit of masking fluid here around the sun and on these masts for these boats over here on the left side. And I don't know if that's going to work or not. I'm going to try to see if I can get a nice edge around this sun that's setting. And I thought maybe that might help. May not help, but if it doesn't, I'll work around it. It's a very simple painting, very few number of objects, and we're going to try to create a nice mood with this painting, with the sun and the setting sun and the sky, and there's some a little bit of a head, some little small mountains there in the background. Hardly mountains, but they're there nevertheless. So let's see if we can get a nice color here for this sky. I'm using ultra blue and my burnt sienna to get a sort of a gray. I probably should remind you what paints I'm using here. And these are My Mary Blue transparent watercolors, and they are very beautiful, very nice paints to use. And let me go around the palette here very quickly before I get started and tell you that I have here neutral tint, cyan blue, ultra blue, permanent violet, bluish it's called, permanent violet bluish. I have crimson lake, primary red, magenta, cadmium red, burnt sienna, raw sienna, yellow ochre. I have here cupric green, sap green, limon yellow, and primary yellow. And I also have burnt umber, still to grain brown, Auvergne orange. I have over here a few other colors I use very rarely, but I have some titanium white and lamp black, which I don't use very often, but I may use a little bit of that today. I have a couple of colors I'm experimenting with here, cerulean blue and cadmium orange. So that cadmium orange may come in handy for this type of painting, and we'll just see how it goes. While that paper is soaking up that water, it should be nice and soft. I should be able to just put a nice wash on here, run it all the way down, and try to get it nice and evenly distributed across this whole paper here. Pretty much. I'm going to come back and paint over most of this with other colors, so I'm not too concerned about what I leave. There's water that's going to get sort of the same undertone, if you will, and I'm just going to layer this all on and cover the whole paper with it, and except for this area around the sun, I'll leave a little bit of white there and a little bit of white around these boats over here. And hope you can see those boats. They're really light in the sketch. But let's get going here. I'm using a Sterling Edwards brush, it's called a small. It's about a 1 inch, 1.5 inch bristle brush, and you hear it scratching on the paper. It's a nice brush for blending and making nice soft edges. We come down here with just another little bit of dark paint, maybe add a little more blue to that, and let it sort of blend and soften off. And as I come down, I want to start bringing in some of these other colors, so I'm going to go back and see if I can pick up a little of my cadmium orange here and see if that I can start changing the tone of that sky a little bit without getting it too green. Over here, maybe some in here like this. And it really gets red as we come further down. But I want this to nicely blend. It starts turning, this cad red starts coming in here as we get further down. This area, leave some room around that sun. It really gets a bright red, almost a really bright red-orange as we get down here toward the horizon, which is right about in here. Just softly put this stuff in and let it soften off a little bit. A little bit up here, let it just sort of blend in. Because that paper is wet, damp, these colors will run and blend and not cause a lot of run over. Hopefully I won't get any blossoms out of it either, which is always a problem when you start going back into the sky. Usually my theory on the sky is to get in there, put it in, and get out and leave it alone. But when you're doing a wash like this, you can sort of go back and hit it a few more times. As long as the paper is wet, you can still get a nice blended effect with it, like this. So we're getting a little differentiation in that sky. I don't want it to be one color and one simple gradation. I want it to be have some interest. And so that's why I'm going back there while it's still wet. I want to come down and put some of this water in down here. This is still wet, so I'm going to come in and put a little bit of that in here now as we're coming across. Same kind of deal here, pretty much all around these trees, and this area over here starts getting some more of this orange in it and reddish color. So I'm not even cleaning out my brush, I'm just sort of going back in and pulling together some interesting color here to sort of blend together with the orange, and see if I can put some of this shadow in here, no, not shadow, reflection, and let it soften off and blend together with what's out here. These boats, of course, are in silhouette, so I want to put in the horizon area here and let it connect some of this like this. And then more, big part of this painting will be done when I get this, a lot of this water and sky done, we'll really have a lot done. Okay, so got that going, looks pretty good. Leave that area around the sun back there, let it just kind of get hard back there, hard edges. And this area down front in the foreground in here, I'm just going to use a little bit of my blue, a little bit of my neutral tint, darken it off a little bit so it's not totally black, but just sort of throw in something here that gives it a nice purplish color. And I've got a boat over here I want to kind of paint around. So it looks like that's all water right now, so I'll darken this down in the foreground to make you believe that's the land here. But right now I just want to get a base coat on it, clean up these places so that paint doesn't run down back on my surface like this. All right, over here, kind of clean that out. All right. It's fairly light over there on that right side in the water area, so I want to probably come back and just put a little more of this color that I've got on my palette here, and just sort of darken it down a little bit more. As long as this is soft, it will blend together and run together and not cause a lot of problems. All right, so there I have sky, I have the water, I have the foreground in. This area over here is a little boat that lying upside down, so I'm going to leave that like that is, and maybe just touch a little more orange in some spots over here, kind of carry that color over. Don't want to overdo it, just enough to kind of let you know that that light is covering this. All right, I'm starting to see my brush marks in there now. I need to stop and get out of there. Okay, an interesting layout. Okay, so all I've done with this, all this has been done with this bristle, Sterling Edwards bristle brush, small. Again, I'm painting on 11 by 14 watercolor paper, which is my normal Fabriano Artistico 300-pound cold press. Really have the embossing here, the I don't know if you can see that, but that's their logo on there, or their name anyway, which tells you what the paper is, watermark, something they call that. All right, let's see now. I think I'm going to hold on that for just a second and let it dry. So to speed up the drying time, I'm going to get my handy hairdryer out and give this a good hair dry. I'm going to turn my microphone off so I don't blow your ears out, but please hang on. Okay, I should be back now, and got this thing fairly dry. You can always tell, use the back of your hand to test the paper instead of your fingerprints. If it's warm to the touch or room temperature, it's probably dry. If it's cool to the touch, it's probably still a little bit wet. So there are some areas that are wet there, but I don't want to drag it out for a long time. I just want to move on here and get to the next step, which we're going to work on some of these trees here in the background. We have these trees sitting back here, little outbanks, I guess you call them. And I'm going to get some this violet color, add a little blue to it. It's all in silhouette, and this is another case where I can explain the difference between what the camera sees when you take a photograph with a lot of backlight, which is what this is. When you take a photograph into the sun, you get what photographers call backlight, which means in automatic cameras in particular, the lens closes down and it tries to average out the values in your painting, in your photograph rather, and it makes it look like they're black when you print the photo out. So you have to be cognizant of that. Let's see here. I think we got some clouds up there. Here's the bank. These are the areas back here that kind of have some trees on them. Make them a little darker. I don't want it to be totally black, but I want it to have some depth. And so I'm just going to run this across here like this and down. We have a little area that's kind of breaks through there with the sun, and then we'll leave some room for that. To get a very, very dark color, you can use your dark blue, like ultramarine blue, or if you have a darker blue than that, and if you mix like a viridian green with that and an alizarin crimson with that, you will get a very, very dark, almost black. But with that type of color, you can actually get a tone in it that's either reddish or greenish or bluish, depending on how you mix those three colors. So that's always a good thing to know, how to make a good black. If you don't have something called lamp black or something to give you that color out of the tube, you can always make it if you have those other colors in your palette. Alright, so I'm just kind of swishing this in here, going to run all the way down. I'm adding some blue and some violet into this because it helps with the atmospheric perspective, which is what we're trying to illustrate here. All right, this area here I've left is really for sort of an orange swipe. I want to put another bright orange, it's like a, what you'd call it. It's it sort of sticks out there and just overlaps those mountains. It's sort of the halo effect, I guess you want to call it, from the sun. And what the camera picks up, again, I think the camera is picking that up and making it look that way, but it was kind of pretty, so I'm going to see if I can put that in. All right, so let's put in some very darker, a little bit darker values here. This is in front of what's there, so I'm going to come back and put another set of dark, adding more neutral tint to this to get this sort of darker headlands here. And need a little fogginess back there so it looks like there's something happening behind here. Again, that's the contrast, the dark foreground, the lighter behind it, and then the darker above it gives you a nice looking depth perception there. It gives you a nice something that really lets you believe that's kind of behind what's out here in front. All right, so don't need to belabor this. This is something that just kind of making it look a little more interesting back there. And I want to blend it together more. Just take some clear water and soften these edges and it will come together like that. Okay, so much for that. I have another band of over here on the left side of land. Let's see if I can find out where they go. They're right in here somewhere. Not very thick, not very tall, I should say. But they do come across and kind of outline these boats that are sitting here that look like they're anchored. Something like that. Not too big, not too high, but they have a little bit of dark in there again because the sun is from behind. All this is in silhouette, but I don't want to make it black like the photograph. I want to try to make it look like it would look if you were out there looking at it, which you wouldn't see pure black in nature. You rarely see pure black in nature unless it's under a rock, under the water or something like that. But so that's enough for this back here. All right, so we'll leave those go. I think I want to see if I can go ahead and put this little swipe of sun's reflection in here. While I got that going, I just wet that down a little bit so that it has a good amount of water in it, so I can get this to give me a nice soft edge in there as I just swipe through there. Hopefully it's going to work. Need more color in it. And it's really changing the color. This sky has got a really bright look to it. It's like an aurora, I guess you might consider that. I don't know. It just sort of fades and changes the colors of all this in there. And it comes across that sun and adds some more color over here. So soften it up a little bit, run it together. I'm going to pick up some bright yellow, which I haven't even gotten into yet here. My primary yellow, and start putting some of that in, laying it over some of this, so we get a bright yellow looking area here that sort of goes up and kind of connects with this other area up here in the sky. It's not quite as bright a yellow as I would like, but I didn't leave that paper white underneath it. So I'll just soften it and come back and add a little more other colors in here to sort of blend it all together. One of the things you can do with that brush that I had, that bristle brush, you can come into these areas like this, and by just wetting it up, wetting the brush with clear water, you can get it to blend some of this together. And I'll show you what I mean by just taking clear water in this brush, dabbing it out on a paper towel or on a Kleenex. You can take it and just kind of scrub over this with the clear water, and it will soften these edges and blend them. That's why it's kind of called a blending brush, which is getting some of the look I'm trying to get with this. Maybe just add a little more of this orange up here, yellow up here, and start making another reverse graded wash going up, and I think it will kind of get the color of the sky more what I want. Going up, up. Something like that. This brush really lets it blend together, and we're getting some very interesting colors here. I can come down and add that same approach down here in this area to darken up the water. Again, this is like the second wash. I put a wash on before, but it really lightened up. When I use that hair dryer, you know that these colors lighten up about 20 to 30%. So you have to take that into account when you're painting and using a hair dryer to dry things with. So we'll just blend this together as much as possible and let her go. All right, so it's looking pretty decent, I think. I got my boats over here. I got my fence. There's a fence here in the foreground with some shrubs and bushes around it, and then there's this little yellow canoe sitting here upside down on the right hand side. Probably can't see any of that. I'm going to put in just a little bit of this cloud cover that's over here. I don't know, maybe too early to do this. Let me put in a little bit of this lavender color, purple color. Okay. Stop. Blend it just a little. All right, so I added a few more clouds there to give it a little more something else in that sky. And using this brush to blend it so that I have a nice background on those mountains. All right, enough of that. Down here, let's look and see. I think this is all still wet again now, since I went over the whole thing with my big brush. I got it all wet. All right. We've been going about 30 minutes here, thereabouts. I think this should have taken about 30 minutes, but I'm going back over it a little more than I maybe need to sort of enforce some of these design elements. All right, right here I've got this boat, and it's really dark. Again, it's blackish in silhouette, but I'm going to try to lighten it up a little bit, not make it totally black. But see if I can find where this, here it is, it's right here. Like right here, something like this. One boat, it actually overlaps this other boat here, the mast and so forth. And then there's a second boat that's hanging out right in here somewhere, about this area. Okay. And because it's in that water, we need to make sure that it's connected to the water. So let's put a little bit of a shadow underneath it and kind of pull this together. Again, this is a good use for my blending brush. Put a little paint in there, get the brush with just some clear water, and blend it together so that it looks like there's a reason for that to be there. For here, it's getting, darken it up a little bit more. Okay. So I'm getting some of that feeling of boats out there in the sunset, just watching the sun go down. And this clear water in this brush just helps it all blend together. So I've made those sort of a purplish color too, which might be what they look like if they were in the setting sun. All right, so now what? Let's see, we've got some fence posts and things here. Let me pull out a little of my brownish color and mix it with this. I've got burnt umber here. Mix it with my purple that I have and see if we can. I've got the number, what, 12 round. And I want to put a, it's too wet. It's going to just blend in. So I'm going to have to let that dry. Maybe this is drier over here. I'm going to change brushes. I'm going to go back and get my flat brush, I think. I like it better for making these fence posts. So let's get going over here on this one. We've got a couple of these that are like sort of sitting here like this. Add some dark to them, change the color. Something like that. There's another small one down here somewhere that kind of going down to like a dock maybe. I don't see the dock, but there's sort of a something down below here where they can get boats in and out. It may just be a launching point for boats, whether it's a dock or not, I don't know. But so we'll put in a few of these fence posts. Make them, don't make them all perfectly perpendicular. Why, you ask? We're looking for variety. We're looking for variation. If you make them all perfect, that might suit an architect's requirements, but it doesn't do much for the painting process or make it it makes it less artistic if you make them look too much like an architect would draw these. So we're trying for something that's looks like art. Here we go. See if this is going to work. I need plenty of heavy paint there so that I can, if it's wet, I want to make sure that I have enough paint to absorb it and leave my mark there. Like this. There's a big horizontal beam going across here. Again, make sure you get dark enough paint here to run this fence post across here, fence rail. Trying to make these so they don't look identical to each other. Another fence post here going this way. So these are just a barricade to keep people from falling in the water, I assume. And now we're going to tie these things into the ground here very shortly with some more dark things going on down here. But we have to, again, in silhouette, it just looks like all one big black blob sitting down here. And I know if we were there taking this photograph, we would see colors and shapes of the leaves and the trees and things that are sitting here. And it would be dark, but you would still see some color in it. And so far, I've refused to put any green in here so far. I could do that. I could put some green in it. But I'm kind of giving you this, what this looks like in silhouette. Blues and purples and neutral tint. So let's just put a mixture of these colors. Pull in some of this orange in here and let the some of that light shine through. Reddish orange. Okay, we've got a big old kind of a tree that sticks out here. I'm going to come back and get that, but I want to sort of finish what I'm working on here and get these things sort of pulled in and finished off. There's a lot of little bushy like things, look like little trees or something floating around out here. This is in Canada, so these bushes would be, there would be some evergreen type of bushes here, and so I could be doing this with a larger brush, I'd be working a little faster, but just kind of taking my time, having fun here, putting these things in. Get over here around this boat. I want to make sure I outline it okay, so you can come back and see that. There's a some sort of a tree-like bush or something here that sort of sticks up and kind of goes behind this. It's got a little bit of some little things hanging down. Get some of the water out of my brush. I can get a better drier edge on these. So that gives these things a nice look. If you can put those in, and I think I need some more over here maybe that's just sort of kind of left it out, but I'm going to put a big tree back in there anyway, so I'm not going to do too much more here. Don't have to be too descriptive here. Just throw it in. Leave room under this boat so I can identify that for the viewer, and that add a little more yellow or orange or red or something here in some spots to kind of pick it up a little bit. Again, this has got all kinds of bushes and stuff. They're behind this boat. So not a very good edge on that boat here. It's got to have a smoother. All right. Over here, I want to get some more of this orange color, reddish orange color, and pop a little bit in here to let you see that the sun is maybe pushing through some of these and changing the color a little bit, making a little bit of a rust color here in some of these areas. All right, this big yellow canoe setting here. Get me some of this yellow paint. I'll be echoing sort of this color that's in the sky, although I don't want it to be so bright that it takes your attention away from the center of interest, but I want to put a nice little something like that, darken it down a little bit for the bottom, And there we have a little boat with a little shadow canoe on it sitting there, and when that dries up, I'll put a little rail on the bottom. Over here on the left side, I'm gonna go get this bigger brush. I'm tired of messing with that little 1/4-inch brush, or 1/4-inch brush. Get my 1-inch brush out. I've got this big bushy tree over here to put in, and so I'm going to use pretty much the same colors: my browns, my burnt umber, my purple, and my neutral tint. And over here, we're just going to come in and just pop these in over here like this. They're actually falling behind this fence. So let's let them sort of come out and show their leaves and that sort of thing. Again, dry brush. If you can get some dry brush on there, it really makes a lot of difference with the look of the painting when you're finished, because it shows the nice effects you can get with a dry brush and watercolor. There, we've got some more branches sticking out like this. So something like that is what I'm trying for. I may want to come back and restate that fence post there, just so that I make sure that it's on top and not behind anything else, because this tree is really more out in the water, and it's actually behind I paint it like it's out in the water, but it's behind the fence. So let's do that and see how that works. Down here, add a little more darks in some areas here around this, so we don't have it so. I want to have a little interest in there. I just don't want it to take all your attention away. And so let's see, how are we doing? Pretty good here. Let me come back, and while I got this big brush, I'm going to get this brownish color and see if I can restate this guy here, make him a little darker, so you know that fence is on this side of those trees. So I'm just going to repaint those little areas to reinforce that. Put a little shadow beneath them. That'll help. All right, so don't need to do much more there. That's enough. I do have this a little bit of this masking fluid that I put up here, which I think I'm going to take off now and see if how I can. It's a pretty wobbly looking masts for those boats. Probably shouldn't have used this masking fluid, but I'll see if I can make it better with a little script liner or a little bitty brush here. If I got a small brush I can use to sort of put it in there with, put that mast in. I was going to leave the mast white, but the masking fluid didn't make the kind of mark that I wanted. I heard an artist yesterday saying they don't use masking fluid because they can never get the edge they want. This here is going to be my attempt to straighten that thing out a little bit, and see if I can get a sort of a, I think it looks like a mast sticking up. I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of light on that thing here and there. The other one the same way. I probably could do the same kind of thing with it here. Leave a little light on it. I should have my script liner out. It's got a finer brush point, but this will work. I got the wrap for the sails there. And a bit of that color in here, darken that up. So these don't have to be perfect, but they have to give you the indication that this is a mast. And so I'm going to come back now and get my script liner and see if I can put in a couple of very light ropes that are holding this in, or they're attached to these masts. I may really screw this one up now, I don't know. Nice point on this one. One over here. Something like that. And put one back here on this guy. All right, it looks like there's a couple of boats out there in the water that are in silhouette form and are watching the sunset. And so the photograph actually had those boats covered up. I couldn't even see them in the photograph, so I had to redo those and actually change the photograph a little bit. Let me see if I can put a little something on the side of this to kind of lighten it up. Let you see there's a little reflection there from the sun hitting this thing. All right. Oh, the last thing I was going to do is over here on this boat, put the little rail that goes down the bottom of the boat, so you know that's a canoe that has something on it. It's not just a mistake laying there from a... Okay, that helps a little bit. It's still a little bit too wet. I see it spreading out. I'm going to leave it at that. I think there's a couple other things here in the grass that were laying there that kind of break up that space so you don't have so much. Put a few more things here. We have a lot of grasses and things like that that are growing here. So I'm just going to load up my brush here with some of this dark stuff and just kind of put in a few more things to help fill in this area here. And over here, even some put over this way. Something like that is really what I'm trying to show you here. And last step I always like to do a lot of when I do these watercolors to try to loosen them up a little bit is to splatter some stuff on them to give them a little bit of a loose effect. A lot of water, a lot of the dark color here, and just throw it on there, and it kind of helps a little bit. It looks like maybe there are like little leaves or something there, or something in the ground. Even on the bottom of the boat there might be some spots. Okay, folks, I think that's about all I wanted to do here today. That's about 50 minutes, a little longer than I thought. But let me back up here, and I hope you can give this a try. I'll have sketches for this on my website, and you can like download the sketch and give us a try if you wish to do that. And let me know how you do. I'd appreciate some comments on my videos, and appreciate some referrals to your friends. Have them check my videos out, and maybe subscribe. And be sure to check my website and my Facebook page. And I think that'll do it for today. Until I see you again, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Bye-bye.